I asked you to send me your best Game Week 8 wildcard drafts, and in today's video, I'm going to brutally rank them. And before we get into rating anyone's drafts in today's video, the best thing that you can do is follow me on Twitter at FPLTom_ if you want to take part in future videos like this. Starting off today, our first draft that was sent in was from Justin Flowers on YouTube. Now his team, it's looking quite strong. I'm not going to lie, this is a very good Game Week 8 wildcard. There's lots of positives that I can see off this one. The triple Spurs I'm a big fan of. That's the current position I'm in with my current squad. I definitely think with their next 3 fixtures, that is something we want to be taking advantage of. Luton, Fulham and Crystal Palace as a set of 3 are absolutely fantastic. Son in that striker position is also looking, insane, to be honest. Looking, verging on the words of essential. I don't want to put it out there yet, but if he's getting penalties as well, we don't know because Spurs haven't had a penalty yet. But if they get if he's on penalties, the fixtures are good for the next 3. He's playing in that upfront position, getting the extra point. He could be a vital asset for us and our sides. He's got Salah in here, arguably the main reason that a lot of people are wildcarding at the moment. Salah, one of the most consistent point scorers in the game. Only 1 blank so far this season, and that was all because of VAR's dodgy, decision around Luis Diaz. So if that had have counted, it would have still been 7 for 7 for Mo Salah. Diaby, a great pick from Aston Villa as well. Matty Cash, another great pick with Villa's amazing fixture run. We are just going to flash that up on screen right now. Wolves, West Ham, Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, Tottenham and Bournemouth. Arguably the best run in the league that any team is going to have this season. Absolutely fantastic run for them. They're honestly killing it as well. A 6-1 victory over Brighton, a team that we've kind of idolised probably over the last 8 or so months, just dismantled by a great Villa side. Plenty of attacking options, good defensive options as well. Matty Cash, so attacking, picking up really good underlying data, so very happy with those picks. The front 2, I think, does pose a few questions. Now, Julian Alvarez has been killing it. Harlan, we'll come on to talk about him in a little bit later with the Harlan excluded drafts that people have been sending me. So we'll talk about him in a bit. But Julian Alvarez, yes, he's been really good, but the fixtures for City just aren't quite there. I think I would prefer potentially maybe going for an Ollie Watkins. Maybe someone I've seen that's kind of been floating around is a Dominic Solanke on one of these wildcards. Everton, Wolves, Burnley as the next 3 for them. In Game Week 13 as well, Sheffield United away, so definitely I think that might be something to look at. It does give you extra funds as well for that midfield, where I feel having 5 key midfielders just seems to be the way this year. There's so much quality in those positions, and the forwards, they're not quite delivering, are they? Watkins this week, prior to this week, wasn't really performing, wasn't on a lot of people's radars. Now he seems to be in every single wild card that I see except this one. But yeah, I definitely think Julian Alvarez, he is killing it at the moment, but I think with the difficult fixtures might be one to potentially consider, or having kind of an out route from him in future game weeks. Pedro Neto, a player who's absolutely been smashing it, relentlessly since the start of this season. We all kind of had him last year. It didn't quite work out, but this year it seems to be his year, and he is killing it. The fixtures for Wolves, they are a little bit temperamental. Villa at home is going to be difficult. Bournemouth away, great fixture. Newcastle at home, a little bit difficult. But then Sheffield United and Fulham in the mix as well within their next 6 fixtures. He definitely could pose himself as a good bench option. Maybe if you're not going for Anthony Gordon, I think Pedro Neto does offer himself as a really good option. The only other kind of issue that I did have with this team was Martinez in goal. We spoke about the really good fixtures, so maybe it is worth that double up of the Villa defence. But I think if Watkins is, absolutely killing it and starts to again verge on that word being essential with these good fixtures, it's going to be quite hard to take a goalkeeper out, especially when you haven't got a backup goalkeeper either on the bench. I feel that potentially could be something that could raise an issue within your side. If Watkins is slapping and you want to get him in, it's not an easy route, to be honest. I think maybe going for some West Ham players. Areola's fixtures are great. Still at 4.2 million as well, so would free up more budget as well to maybe, get a Cameron Archer, maybe a Branthwaite on the bench as well, just to free up and, make that squad a little bit better, fill it out. West Ham's fixtures as well are really good after game week 10. But other than that, I think this is a very solid wildcard draft, so I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. And let's move on to the next one. The next wildcard draft that was sent in to me for Game Week 8 was from FPL Green Arrows on Twitter. And again, this is a very, very strong wildcard. No complaints from me here. There are a few different players in here. Obviously, Watkins that we spoke about. You know, Areola, one of my suggestions from last week. Shaw in here as well. Anderson is a great shout. One of the highest scoring defenders in FPL and one of the highest rated kind of players in Who Scored's rating as well at the moment for the start of this season. Been absolutely killing it. Good fixtures as well coming up for Crystal Palace, especially with good bench cover that you have in that defensive area. He definitely looks like a great option. Palace as well as one of the best defenses for underlying data as well so far this season. So I'm very happy to see him starting to creep into more people's teams. I think if you can't quite afford Anderson, I think Gahey is also a fantastic option to get yourself into that defense at 4.5 million, because Anderson isn't going to be scoring the goals that he did at the weekend every single week, and I think for that extra 0.3 million that is available, Mark Gahey also offers great value and a great way into that Palace defence. Like I said, with their good fixtures coming up, they've got Nottingham Forest this week, Newcastle and Tottenham not the greatest, but then after that it's a really nice run of four of Burnley, Everton at home, Luton away, and West Ham. So some really good fixtures coming up for Crystal Palace. So I definitely think Eze might start to be potentially on people's shopping lists. You know, Anderson, Gahey, these type of players definitely need to be in consideration for potential bench options and kind of rotatory players in your Game Week 8 wildcard drafts. I really like the Spurs stack. I've already spoke about that. Going with Son captain this week as well, something that I think I'm going to do, and he has gone for Anthony Gordon on the bench. He has been a fantastic, you know, player over the kind of opening 7 game weeks, and I think even with his suspension you would expect him to kind of bounce back and make his way back into this team, with Newcastle still having quite a few good fixtures up until I'd probably say around game week 13, game week 14, when we probably want to switch off the Newcastle kind of hype train. But yeah, definitely some good players in here. I think this one slightly edges it, as I feel it's more kind of a balanced team, a little bit better depth on the bench as well, and you know, players like Anderson coming in, really good option. So I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10, probably the strongest that we're going to see in here. It does seem quite template, but I feel you've got all the good options in here. You've got good bench cover as well, and I feel you're covering all the key fixtures that are coming up. So a 9 out of 10 for me. Let's move on to the next one. FPL Dirk's Game Week 8 Wildcard Draft is the next one that we're going to take a look at. Now, there are a few different players in this one that we haven't quite spoken about just yet in today's video. Trent Alexander-Arnold, a player that I am seeing bandished around on Twitter, potentially making his way back into people's wildcard drafts. And you know, with the Liverpool good fixtures coming up, the defensive record, you know, seeming to be okay as well. I definitely think he does, you know, pose himself in the question, does he get back into people's teams? And you know what, looking at the fixtures, Brighton, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Luton, Brentford, it's a really good run in there. Then they play City, then play Fulham. So you would imagine probably in that run there's going to be 3 to 4 potential clean sheets. Whether or not Trent can pick up some attacking returns does remain the big question to justify that extra price point. For me personally, I don't think he's quite there justifying that price point so far this season with his performances, with kind of the data sets that he's been putting up as well. I think Andy Robertson for a little bit less money, about £1.5 million less, does offer that just that little bit extra value. Van Dijk as well. I feel like just going for one of these players makes a little bit more sense to me than going for Trent at the moment, until I see something absolutely amazing from Trent. Maybe this Brighton game is where he's going to explode. I think I just need to see that little bit extra for me to justify spending such high budget on a defender when so many cheap 4.5, 5 million defenders are showing excellent value. You know, you think of the Matty Cashes this year, putting up great numbers, getting plenty of attacking returns, a really good fixture run for considerable amounts of less money. You know, when we've got to kind of find ways to get people like Salah in our team and other high value assets like Son, you know, maybe you've got Bruno Fernandes that you want to keep around, Harlan, Julian Alvarez, so many high expensive players. We do need to kind of balance that, and I don't think Trent is quite justifying that kind of price tag that he is right at this point. Obviously, Kieran Trippier, he's been amazing over the past 3 game weeks. Him and Newcastle's run does continue, so I think he is justifying his price now, starting to pick up some attacking returns and clean sheets as well. Jared Bowen, I'm very, very, popular for this pick. I'm very, very, bullish on it, to be honest, is the word I would describe. He has started the season like he did a few years ago. Him and West Ham as well seem to be back in a place where they were maybe 2-3 years ago when we were quite, hot on West Ham assets. Very much a player I would be looking to get in, especially with that West Ham run around game week 10. Starting off with Everton, Brentford, Nottingham Forest, Burnley and Crystal Palace. A great run, and you feel a player like Jared Bowen could massively exploit that. I think James Ward-Prowse is another fantastic option if you want to get yourself kind of into that West Ham spirit, maybe a little bit early, or at least have potential options that you could go for. The Spurs double we have spoke about. Saka remaining in here. He has been one of Arsenal's best scoring assets. There are some really good fixtures coming up as well. Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home and Wolves at home as well. But then you've got teams like Man City, Newcastle, Sheffield United, Chelsea. There are some really, really difficult fixtures in there, with him potentially not being on penalties as well, or just giving them away to people. I think that does take his value down a little bit, diminishes his value as a potential FPL asset. If he's got penalties as well, with, okay-ish fixtures, I think that just makes him just that little bit more kind of needed within our sides. But I definitely think you could look to go out without him. Maybe game week 10, look to potentially bring him back in, or have a plan to, get him back in for game week 10 or that run, or kind of avoid him and hope that Arsenal don't do too well. But they have started the season extremely brightly, remain one of the only unbeaten sides in English football at the moment, and Saka has played a key pivotal part in that. So it's whether or not you want to go against the fixtures or keep with a player that has been doing consistently quite well, picking up solid returns each week, but the fixtures are now turning, so whether or not we want to keep these Arsenal assets is the big question. And for me, I think with the potential injury concerns and lack of penalties, if I was on a wild card, I think I would be a little bit hesitant to maybe have Saka in this team. But that's my personal opinion. Let me know what you think of that down in the comment section below. My only other query I had with this team is I think you are a little bit lacking of depth and cover, especially in the defensive area. Yes, that free is great, but I think if you drop Trent down to maybe a Robbo, it frees up $1 million. One of these could potentially go to Anderson. I think Branthwaite is a really good option as well from Everton at $4 million. Just get some players that are actually going to play. Baldock, obviously, with an injury at the moment. Charlie Taylor has only played the last 3 games. Whether or not he's going to keep his place in the side does remain to be seen. I know he is at 3.9 million now, but I think I would prefer someone like Branthwaite, who I feel has established himself as the first team centre-back in that Everton side, or get yourself a Mark Gahey, take advantage of Palace's really good fixtures. I think that's the only changes that I would personally make to this side, but I think I'm going to give this one a 6. I think there is, a little bit of work to do with the bench. Maybe I'm not 100% convinced by Trent. Maybe a question around Saka and the Arsenal assets. But yeah, I think there's some work to do, but it's in a good place, to be honest. So I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. And the final team that we are going to be reviewing that has been sent in, this one it's a little bit different. It is the no Harlan draft. Now, I know a few people have potentially been considering these, and you know what? It's quite spicy. It is quite spicy of a team, but for me, this is the big thing. I'm going to put it out there. I feel you still need Haaland in your teams, to be honest. He is one of those assets that even when the fixtures aren't quite there, I still feel he is going to deliver. I feel because he's so highly owned as well, him getting any attacking returns or absolutely smashing it could decimate your season. We're going to flash the City fixtures up on screen right now. People are talking about these fixtures and saying, could we potentially go without Harlan for them? I think the Arsenal game, yes, that's going to be difficult. We know that is going to be a really tricky game. We spoke about them in the last section. Obviously unbeaten so far in the season. Then Brighton. Brighton are a team I feel like have fallen away a little bit. Obviously the 6-1. Prior to that, there was a few questions I was starting to have around Aston Villa. Brighton. Lots of chopping and changing. It's not going to go quite well. You've got European football as well. You see that when teams sometimes qualify for Europe, their performances in the Premier League do drop away as well. And I think we are starting to see that with Brighton. They're losing a little bit of consistency, yet to keep a clean sheet as well in the Premier League. So you do imagine City could have quite a lot of joy in that fixture at home as well. Manchester United seem to be in absolute disarray, losing to Crystal Palace at home. So, you know, it is a derby, but you'd still say you'd have to fancy Manchester City for that one. Then it's Bournemouth, again, yet to pick up any wins in the Premier League. Chelsea as well have been very ropey over the opening couple game weeks. I know they're currently beating Fulham at the time of recording, but you'd expect them to beat Fulham. And I feel they're definitely a team that could be taken advantage of. Liverpool and Spurs, I think those are the two tricky fixtures. But out of those lot, you still expect Harlan to probably pick up, you know, 4 or 5 attacking returns within those fixtures. And with him being so highly owned and his EO being like massively crazy, I think it's just not worth going for him, to be honest. I think it's worth sticking with him. I think the big debate does come around captaincy, and obviously this manager here has gone for Luton at home with his captaincy armband. That's the way I'm currently thinking as well. I think that's where you might get the more gains out of the team. I think still stick with Harlan so you're not getting absolutely decimated by rank, because he is one of those players, and Manchester City are one of those teams where they can turn it on. Not every single week is going to be like Wolves. It's a very rare phenomenon for Manchester City. They are a very consistent, solid side who will get back to form, who will start to, you know, decimate and embarrass some teams. And Harlan this season so far, I know he hasn't kind of picked up the attacking returns we're all expecting from him, but if you look at some of the games, the chances he's getting, if he puts them away, it's, you know, hat trick, that could be the end of your season completely. So I think you need to have him just down to the fact how highly owned he is. I think where you're going to make your gains up is by, you know, potentially switching around the captains. Son, Salah, Saka, these players all have really good appetizing fixtures. Your Lutons, your Sheffield Uniteds coming up, your Fulhams as well with their, you know, one of their side, being the worst for XG conceded. That is where you're going to make up your gains rather than kind of having Harlan out of your team. The rest of the team for me though is a really extremely solid setup, so I think I'm going to give it a 6 as well. I think the team is in a really good place, but like I said, I feel you just need Harlan. I feel captaincy you can start to look and potentially rotate around, but I just don't think it's worth going without Harlan for these fixtures. Let me know if you've got any questions about your Game Week 8 wildcard drafts. If you need any questions answering, do leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. And thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in Game Week 8.